Welcome to the Max Clark Show, dedicated to truth, justice, and education, revolutionizing the human spirit through compassion and integrity. It's time to shift the paradigm and accept the truth, tell the truth, and be the truth. Here is your host, Max Clark.
We need to start being the most serious people on the planet. Hey, everybody, thanks for tuning in to the Max Clark Show, where we talk about things that matter. All right, first things first, we're going to take care of a little housekeeping. The Max Clark Show is brought to you by the Clark Center for Civics, Politics, and Global Affairs. That's the Clark Center for Civics, Politics, and Global Affairs. And the Max Clark Show is also brought to you by Our Tiny Little Kitchen Catering and Barbecue. That's Our Tiny Little Kitchen Catering and Barbecue. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram as well at Our Tiny Little Kitchen. Hey guys, do me a favor. Won't you hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, share this broadcast, tell a friend so they can learn about what lobbying is. Now, last Tuesday, we just got our feet wet about what lobbying is. And, we kind of got into some of the dirty little secrets. But we're going to get a little deeper today. Okay? And just know that lobbying is a constitutional right. Lobbying is a constitutional right. The First Amendment, the Constitution demands that we lobby. And a lot of people don't understand that. A lot of people don't know that. And matter of fact, I'll just read it to you. It says, Congress shall have no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble, and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. And to petition the government for a redress of grievances. I'm going to say that one more time. And to petition the government for a redress of grievances. And when you petition the government for a redress of grievances, that is lobbying. Okay? So lobbying is not a bad thing. We have people who do bad things, not so good things as it relates to lobbying. But it's our constitutional right. It's in the Bill of Rights, and it's in the First Amendment. All right, so we need to take heed to that and understand that it's not all of that is not what the media and some of the politicians out there is not what they make it out to be. All right, they make lobbyists out to be boogeymen. But if you don't have a horse in the race, yeah, you'll feel the same way. You'll feel like, well, yeah, these lobbyists, they're the boogeymen. They're the ones who they're rich and they're powerful. And they're, these corporations and think tanks and things like that. And they have the money to push forward this legislation. But we have to understand, we the people, that's a constitutional right that we have. And we have to use it. All right, guys. So we're going to recap from last week. Okay. So last week we talked about the 2-year investigation by USA Today, the Arizona Republic, and the Center for Public Integrity, where this in this investigation, they revealed for the first time the extent to which special interests have infiltrated state legislatures using model legislation. Now, this is why it is important. It is extremely important that we vote in our state and local elections. Is very, very, very important. It's imperative because this is where it's happening. A lot of laws that's passing that's directly affecting you as a citizen is coming through the state. It's coming through the state. And a lot of these, model legislation, it's coming through the state. All right. So the USA Today and the Arizona Republic, and the Center for Public Integrity, they found at least 10,000 bills almost entirely copied from model legislation that were introduced nationwide in the past 8 years, and more than 2,100 of those bills were signed into law. I don't know if y'all heard me, because if you heard me, you hit that like button. If you heard me, you hit that subscribe button. You heard me, you share this, because this is very, very, very important. And this is something that you need your friends to listen to, your family to listen to. This affects everybody. I don't care what background you come from. I don't care your sexual orientation. I don't care what your religion is. I don't care. This affects you. This affects you. And this is something we need to take heed to. And we all need to come to the table together, everyone, so that we can fight this. We need to fight this. 10,000 bills, almost a carbon copy, 10,000 bills, almost a carbon copy, introduced nationwide within the past 8 years. And more than 2,100 of those bills were signed into law. Isn't that something? The investigation examined. Now, let me tell you how thorough this investigation was. They examined nearly 1 million bills in all 50 states, and Congress using a computer algorithm developed to detect similarities in language. Okay, so with that, that search, it's powered by the equivalent of 150 computers that ran nonstop for months. And they compared known model legislation with bills introduced by lawmakers. All right, let's go to work. Let's go to work. Let's go to work. Don't forget to hit that like, share, subscribe, tell a friend, because we about to go to work. Now, models are drafted with deceptive titles, okay, and the descriptions to disguise the true intent. That's what's happening. Okay, they're drafted with deceptive titles and descriptions to disguise their true intent. So, for instance, the Asbestos Transparency Act didn't help people who were exposed to asbestos. The Asbestos Transparency Act did not help people who were exposed to asbestos. Right? It was this act was written by corporations who wanted to make it harder for victims to recoup money. Check this out. The HOPE Act, HOPE, the HOPE Act, which was introduced in 9 states, was written by a conservative advocacy group to make it more difficult for people to get food stamps. This is crazy. This is crazy. But we think that, our elected representatives are the ones who are writing this. These are conservative advocacy groups who are writing this. These are corporations who are writing these things. Special interests, sometimes they work to create the illusion of expert endorsement. Public consensus groups, public consensus or grassroots support, they're making you think that there's like a movement that's really, going across the nation for whatever this particular interest is. So that's the game. That's the game. And then everybody starts to jump on board when it's just not true. Check this out. One man testified as an expert in 13 states to support a bill that makes it more difficult to sue asbestos exposure. In several states, lawmakers weren't even told that he was a member of the organization that wrote the model legislation on behalf of the asbestos industry, the American Legislative Exchange Council. I don't know if y'all heard that, because this is unbelievable. One man testified as an expert in 13 states to support a bill that made it more difficult to sue for asbestos exposure. One guy. And the lawmakers weren't even told that this guy was a member of the organization that wrote the model. Come on, y'all. Come on, y'all. We got to get better. We got to become the most serious people on the planet. This is affecting everybody. Everyone. Copy bills, copy bills have been used to override the will of local voters and their elected officials. This is how deep it is. It overrides. It overrides. Cities and counties, they've raised their minimum wage. They've banned plastic bags and destroyed, seized guns. Sounds good, right? Check it out. They had industry groups that oppose such measures make them illegal again, with model bills passed in state legislatures. This is why it is important. It is extremely important that we vote, especially in our state and city elections, because we see what's happening. All right? As soon as we take 2 or 3 steps forward, we get pushed 10 steps back because of this type of foolery. Now, among them, right, among these model bills, we have Airbnb. All right, Airbnb, they supported conservative Arizona-based Goldwater Institute, which pushed model bills to strike down local laws limiting short-term rentals in residential neighborhoods in 4 states. This is Airbnb, all right? And I know a lot of people out there, they're using Airbnb. But Airbnb, they're out there, they're writing legislation. They're writing legislation. Industry groups, they have an extraordinary success pushing copycat bills that benefit themselves, all right? It's mostly to benefit them. It's not for you. It's not for you. So now when it comes down to lobbying this way, yeah, that's why they make them out to be the boogeyman. But the problem is they don't talk about the lobbyists who are out there working for good. More than 4,000 such measures were introduced during the period that USA Today and the Arizona Republic analyzed. One that passed in Wisconsin limited. You ready for this? One of the bills that passed in Wisconsin limited pain and suffering compensation for injured nursing home residents, restricting payouts to lost wages, which the elderly residents didn't have in the first place. Come on, y'all. They didn't have that in the first place. That's ridiculous. Elderly folks, elderly residents, they, man. Now, that's what's not even being put out there, okay? That's not even being put out there. Nobody's even talking about this. People should know about this, but it's not being talked about. Now, when they politicize some major issues like gun control, abortion, or, tobacco or opioids, then they'll really start to talk about it. But this here, that's huge. That's huge. And it should be, they need to spotlight that. And people need to fight against that. Now, it says that this work proves what many people have suspected in the first place, which is just how much the democratic process has been outsourced to special interests. Lisa Graves, she actually said that. Now, Lisa Graves, she is the co-director of Documented. Now, this is a company who probes corporate manipulation of public policy. She says it is both astonishing and disappointing to see how widespread it is. Good Lord, it's an amazing thing to see. And I mean, and that's keeping it clean. That's keeping it clean. This is ridiculous. And I hope y'all understand the message that I'm trying to convey here. Okay. It is so much power in this lobbying industry that if they're doing it, why can't we do it? Why can't we do it for ourselves? We can do it. We got to get that, it's a misnomer. It's a misnomer that lobbying is bad. Just put it like that. It's a misnomer, all right? The impact of model legislation is undoubtedly larger than now, yeah, so this now when I talked about 10,000, carbon copy bills that were identified, through this investigation, that's just scratching the surface. That's just scratching the surface. Now, because this investigation relied on matching identical text, it flagged instances where legislators copied model legislation nearly verbatim. Nearly verbatim. But it didn't detect bills that adapted an idea without using the same language. Sherry Greenberg, who spent 10 years in the Texas legislature and is now the Max Sherman Chair in state and local government at the University of Texas at Austin, she said that bills used to spring up from lawmakers' experiences, constituents, or lobbyists representing long-established industries. I'll say that again. She said that bills used to spring from lawmakers' experiences. This is how, it was more organic that way. It came from their experiences, their constituents who they're there to serve, or lobbyists representing long-established industries. Model legislation has flourished as gridlock in Congress forced special interest groups to look to the states to get things done. So that's what's happening. That Circus Act that's going on in Washington, in Congress, while they're sitting up there in the stalemate, just going back and forth, putting on the show, they said, okay, we're going to fall back on lobbying you guys. We're going to come down to the states. This is where it really counts. This is where it really affects the people firsthand. That's what's happening. And that's why we're feeling so much from these laws, from these bills that are being passed, this model legislation. This is why we're really feeling it, because it's been an attack. It's been an attack on state legislation. It's been an attack. Hey guys, to tell you what we're going to do, we're going to take a little break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about the states that copycat the most. States and industries that copycat the most. Hey guys, all right guys, we're going to take a little break. We'll be back right after this.
Tune in to the Max Clark Show, Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Don't forget to hit the like and share button. Follow the Max Clark Show on Facebook and Instagram, and subscribe to the Max Clark Show 747 on YouTube.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Max Clark Show, where we talk about things that matter. Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. Hey guys, do me a favor. Hit that thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and hit that bell. Hit that bell so you can be notified when I come out with new content. All right. Tell a friend. Tell a friend. This is definitely a conversation that we need to have in our living room. And we need to come together and hash out some ideas. Whatever differences that we have, we need to put those to the side. Leave that at the door. Leave it at the door, because we got a lot of work to do. All right. And that's why the Max Clark Show is here, to talk about things that matter, because this is something that matters. This is something that matters. Now, there are going to be a lot of issues that are going to be put out there to pretty much create a diversion, have us look one way when they're doing something on the other side. Again, we need to start being the most serious people on the planet. And that's why I start my show off with that. Every show. It's time. It's time. We have to stop being hoodwinked and bamboozled and led astray. Because I want to be honest with you. Most of this is entertainment. Most of the stuff that's going on in Washington, D.C., that's entertainment. We like the drama. We like the drama. So I think it's time to set the drama aside, because the drama is affecting us in a major way. In a major way. Okay, guys, we only have about 10 or 12 minutes left. So let me get down to business. All right. So right here, I'm showing you right here on your screen, I'm showing you the states that copy that copy the most legislation in this fashion. Okay. And as you can see here, like we have Illinois, which is, man, they putting in that work. New York, Massachusetts, New Jersey, Rhode Island. Man, look at all these blue states. Look at all these blue states putting in that work. All right. We got Washington, California. Okay. We have Mississippi. Now, Mississippi, Hawaii. Look at Mississippi. They are clowning. 744. Mississippi's clowning. Now, that's through industry. Okay. If you see, the light blue is industry. The darker blue is the liberals who are doing this copycat legislation, and red obviously is conservative, and white is other. So look, Arizona putting in that work. Missouri putting in that work. Oklahoma, West Virginia, they putting in that work. Putting in that work with this copycat legislation. So what you can do is you can actually pause this video and take a look at your state, or maybe the state your mom live in, or you know your kids live in, or a cousin, or you. Take a look at the state, and then start to find out who your state representatives are, who your state senators are, and see what they've done as it relates to this copycat legislation. See how much dirt they have on their hands. Now, not all model legislation is driven by, the special interests and, things like that. And, or they're not designed to make someone money. Some bills were written to require, okay, this is when I talk about, this is what I mean. I'm sorry. This is what I mean when I say that lobbying is not all about, people just, money, 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 me, and just pushing whatever legislation they want by these millionaires and trillionaires and corporations and think tanks and special interests. It's not all about that. I mean, the ones who are out there who are really trying to make a difference for the people, they do things such as, they write bills to require sex offenders to register with law enforcement. That was lobbied. That was lobbied. Okay, that should have been automatic. I don't know why it had to be lobbied, but that was lobbied. Okay, so that's something, to really look at as it relates to lobbying, because there's some good that comes out of it. You can go on the sex offender list for your area, and you'll see hundreds, if not thousands, of people pop up as known sex offenders, and that's because of lobbying. All right, so we have lobbying to thank for that. We have the First Amendment to thank for that. Other bills, they've made it easier for members of the military to vote. That was lobbied. Or they increased penalties for human trafficking. So it can be used for good. You can use your power for good. It doesn't always have to be bad. We can use it for good. But that's what we're going to talk about in part 3. All right. In our final episode on lobbying, we're going to talk about what we can do and how we can lobby. Okay. And lobbyists, yeah, they're expensive, but we can hire our own lobbyists and figure out what we want, what issue hits close to us and that's near and dear to our hearts, and issue that we know frontwards and backwards, so that when we work with these lobbyists and we get a chance to go, wherever you're from. For me, I'm in Illinois, so I go to Springfield, or if it gets that far, we take it to Washington, D.C., and we talk to some representatives and senators. We need to know what we're talking about. and we'll have our lobbyists there to help guide us through this. All right. So let me keep going. Charles Seiler, a former external relations manager for the Goldwater Institute, which has pushed copycat bills nationwide, said it's a fast way to spread ideas because with little modification, lawmakers can adapt. They can adapt it to their state. With little modification, they can adapt it to their state. So they it's man, it's ridiculous. It's not inherently bad one way or the other, said Seiler, who now works for a political action committee. This guy works for a super PAC. He's saying, this model legislation is not bad. He said, it depends on the idea and the people pushing it. Definitely people use model legislation to push bad ideas around. Well, that's pretty much all of the model legislation. It's more than likely these are bad ideas that are being pushed around, and they just copy and paste it and push it forward as if they came up with it themselves. Allison Anderman, managing attorney at the Pro-Gun Control Giffords Law Center to prevent gun violence, said model bills are simply how the system works now. This is how all laws are written, she said. You'd be hard-pressed to find a law where a legislator sits in a chamber until a light bulb goes off with a new policy. Now, mind you, our tax dollars pay their salaries, and they're making 4, 5, 10, 20 times more than a lot of Americans out here. Our tax dollars are going to pay their salaries, and they can't come up with a single idea. Now, bills, they are supposed to promise to protect the public. That's the ultimate goal. They're supposed to promise to protect the public, but they actually bolster the corporate bottom line. Now, kind of going back to the Asbestos Transparency Act, or the ATC, it sounds kind of boring, right? The Asbestos Transparency Act, all right. Good government policy voters expect their representatives to hammer out on their behalf to safeguard public health, right? This is what we expect. Asbestos, this, causing cancer causing. And we got somebody who's just copying and pasting. You want them in the back hammering out ideas, trying to figure this mess out because asbestos is killing people left and right. But instead, they come up with a bill to make it harder to sue for asbestos. So when you go to the voting booth, when you go to the polls, this is what you need to think about. So you really need to research your representative or your senator, whether it be the United States senator or representative, or your state representative or your state senator. Better transparency was one reason Colorado State Senator Jerry Sonnenberg said he introduced the bill in 2017 and again last year at the urging of a tort reform group called the Colorado Civil Justice League and backed by insurance companies, including Nationwide Insurance. Whenever you add transparency to the mix, it helps all consumers. That's what Sonnenberg said, a Republican. Well, this is not entirely transparent. That's not entirely transparent. I don't know. Transparent to them, but when it comes to the American people, it's on a need-to-know basis, right? What else we got here, guys? Yeah, so that bill had nothing to do with requiring companies to disclose, to consumers what products contain asbestos, or informing those who had been exposed to the cancer-causing mineral how to get help. It didn't help them. The Transparency Act, where's the transparency? But these are lobbying groups that are writing this legislation. That's just evil. Now, in effect, cast corporations as victims, of litigation. When they get sued, they're victims of litigation filed by the people harmed by asbestos. Isn't that something? You're a victim. This corporation is a victim. This multi-billion dollar corporation, they call themselves victims. The model bill requires people battling the asbestos triggered disease mesothelioma. Oh, let me say that again. It's a tongue twister. Mesothelioma. To seek money from an asbestos trust set up to compensate victims before they can sue a company whose product might have caused their cancer. The process can take months or even a year. Many mesothelioma victims die within a year of their diagnosis. So you wonder why it takes almost up to a year. Because they figure, the real victim would be dead anyway, so we'll stretch this time out. The families can still sue on their behalf, but they'll get far less money because the real victim is dead. The real victim is dead. Now, guys, we can keep going. I mean, it is just a dog-eat-dog world out there with this. All right. So out of those 10,000 bills, and I'm going to end with this. Out of those 10,000 bills, state lawmakers introduced, which were all copycat legislation, most of them were written by industry and conservative groups. Out of that 10,000, 4,301 were written by industry groups. Out of that 10,000, 4,012 were written by conservative groups. Out of that 10,000, 1,602 were written by liberals. Out of that 10,000, 248 were written by what they call other. So nobody has clean hands in government as it relates to this copycat legislation. My question to you is, how do you feel about that? What are you going to do? You got lobbyists flooding your state capital and flooding the nation's capital, and they're taking care of business, doing their thing. We'll worry about other things while they're putting in that work. In part 3, our final episode on lobbying, on why lobbying is important, we're going to talk about what we can do, how we can get boots on the ground. But it's going to take money. It's going to take money. Okay? We got to start putting our money where our mouth is. Lobbying isn't cheap. Now, we can lobby ourselves as normal everyday citizens, but they're more likely to listen to a lobbyist. And that's okay. That's okay. Now, we can go out and we can raise hell, and, we can storm the state capitol or, Congress, but I don't think y'all ready for that. You see, there's something going on now where it could be 32 million. Again, it could be 32 million people knocked off of healthcare if the Republicans make this move. 32 million people knocked off of healthcare. Will they do it? Yeah, they'll do it, and I'm going to tell you why. Because if and when they do it, you know what's going to happen? People are going to stand out there with signs. People are going to protest. People are going to march. That's something that they've been doing since the founding of the nation. This is nothing new. That's old. People are going to do it. People are going to be pissed off. CNN, MSNBC, Fox, they'll talk about it. Maybe your local news will have a little blurb about it, and then they'll keep it moving. That's really not going to do anything. While these elected officials, they sit back and they're drinking their bourbon and their cognac and smoking their cigars and eating their $120 steak. on our dime. That's what's going to happen. What would show a real type of we are the people thing, we the people type of thing, is if they pull a plug and 32 million people lose insurance, health insurance overnight. 32 million people better be on the steps of Congress. 32 million people better be on the steps of Congress raising hell because you just stripped them from their health insurance. Now that beats lobbying. That beats lobbying. You don't need to pay a lobbyist, but we're not quite there yet. We're not quite there yet. We're not at the point to where everybody affected has a voice. We're not ready yet. You pull a plug on 32 million people, 32 million people better be knocking those doors down, demanding some justice, or else you'll be getting pink slips come next election. Period. Now that's how it's supposed to go down. But until y'all ready for that, we're going to have to lobby. We have a First Amendment right. Besides freedom of speech, religion, the press, and the right to assemble. Now we take advantage of that. When we're pissed off, yeah, we're going to assemble. Everybody gather up and marching. But nobody wants to lobby. Nobody wants to lobby. We got to get it together, y'all. It's time to go to work. It's time to go to work. Hey, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell so you can get notifications of every broadcast that I have coming out. Look for the Max Clark Show Tuesdays at 7 p.m. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. All right? Subscribe. Love somebody, but more importantly, love yourself.